My name is Minyu Hu. I am from China, and I am starting my graduate diploma course in 2022. I've always been interested in culture and history, so before joining the course, my art was inspired by traditional Chinese culture, historical events, and my life in China. For example, this illustrated book, Blue Bird, was inspired by a trip to a museum that focused on the lives of ancient Chinese women. It is a sad story of a woman who grew up in feudal China and experienced painful foot binding and arranged marriages that she tried to resist but was unable to. I lived in Chongqing, China for 5 years, and the city was the scene of a very violent air war between 1939 and 1940 as a result of the Japanese invasion. And even after all that time, I can still see some traces of the war in the city. So I made a series of images inspired by the air battles in Chongqing, China, called Red Dragonfly, in which I collected a lot of stories about the real air battles that took place in Chongqing and expressed them in my work. Before coming to school in the UK, I lived in a typical Chinese neighborhood, which is known as a district, with a large population, lots of shops and a lively atmosphere nearby. I really enjoyed the life in this neighborhood. So I made a brightly colored witty little picture book to show the living environment, which is named after the neighborhood, Lotus Number 9. In addition to this, I also drew inspiration from Chinese food and mythology. I have always wanted to know more about the cultures of other countries in the world, and I also hope to further learn how to be a more professional art creator. I decided to study illustration in a country with a long history and rich cultural heritage in the UK, so I came to Kingston. I enjoyed my time in Kingston. I found countless new things in the gardens, antique shops and libraries, museums and art galleries. These strange things made me keep learning. I worked hard, tried a lot of materials that I hadn't used before, learned new techniques in the workshop, and learned how to make simple animations. One of the course content that impressed me the most was the fieldwork to Hampton Court Palace. We were asked to use the inspiration collected during the trip to Hampton Court Palace to create. I was so impressed because I didn't expect much from that trip at first. I didn't think I could find anything interesting. I wandered around the gorgeous palace for a long time without any idea. Just some useless photos were taken. But when I walked into a remote cabin in the garden, I found that there were some animal bones stored there. In an instant, the image of a witch who could manipulate life and death appeared in my mind, so I used this as inspiration to create a story about a witch helping the queen find revenge for the king. This is my first project inspired by historical events in England. Interestingly, as I further refined my work, the photos I initially took in the rooms of the palace that I thought were useless suddenly started to come into play, making the story even more interesting. Be authentic and help me complete the story. The significance of the trip to Hampton Palace is huge. Not only for my graduate diploma course, it made a good opening, let me get in touch with British culture and history, and reminded me to be passionate and sensitive to everything in life. And don't be stingy to make efforts when I can't find my way, keep accumulating, and find treasures. As a creative practitioner, life experience is the most important thing for me, because in all my creations, no idea is born out of thin air. All my sources of inspiration come from various aspects of my life. For example, I created Blue Bird because I learned about the lives of ancient women because of a visit to a museum. Temperament prompted me to make Red Dragonfly. The joyful and peaceful experience of the community I lived in led me to make Lotus 9, and so on. I observe every detail of my life. I think these details are worthy of people's attention. It may be a subtle expression, a behavior that people are accustomed to, and it is easy to be ignored or forgotten by others. But I believe that there is something behind these details. Hidden things worth thinking about. I like creative work. And it is precisely it that allows me to constantly observe and reflect on my daily life, and to express my feelings in certain ways. Artist Chen Jiung said that everything around us supports our life and is the foundation of our existence. He believes that there is always another way of looking at things. That it is a complacent fool to believe that everything is normal or just that there is always another way of looking at things, that there is always an angle that needs to be embraced. Digested. I very much agree with his point of view. In the future creative projects, I also hope that I can continue to observe life, continue to think about life, and not take everything for granted. I believe these thoughts are meaningful. I will continue to create with the inspiration I find in my life.